Hello, welcome to the third episode of No Labels Bipartisan Beat.
This week's first bipartisan news highlight comes straight from Wisconsin. On Wednesday, January 22nd, in his second State of the State address, Governor Tony Evers reflected on his proudest accomplishments of his first year in office, one of those being bipartisan legislation.
In my last State of the State address, I asked the legislature to set politics aside so we could work together on the issues facing our state. I said I expected bills to be passed with broad support and in the spirit of bipartisanship. So one of the things I'm most proud of is that more than 95% of the bills I signed my first year in office had bipartisan support. Major accomplishment.
Another governor, Janet Mills of Maine, delivered her first State of the State address and also called for bipartisanship.
These are trying times. Politics from Washington and beyond are marked by rancor, divisiveness, and fear. And during this volatile presidential election year, the noise is deafening, turning us away from the security and sameness of our own small outpost. Tariffs and trade wars, threats of terrorism and partisan fighting paralyze the nation's capital. But here in Maine, we're doing what Mainers have done for more than 2 centuries, putting our shoulder to the wheel and working across the aisle to get things done for Maine people. Because we're not Washington, we are Maine.
In another Maine-related bipartisan news story, Maine Senator Susan Collins' bipartisan bill to combat plastic pollution in oceans on a global scale was approved by the Senate on Wednesday. The Save Our Seas 2.0 Act had over 18 co-sponsors from both parties.
The bill will help fight ocean plastic pollution by establishing a marine debris response trust fund to provide resources to decrease marine plastic pollution and directing the executive branch to maintain international leadership on marine pollution.
Rep. David Cicilline, the chairman of the House Antitrust Subcommittee, was the guest this week on the Vergecast, a podcast about technology. Rep. Cicilline talked about the Antitrust Subcommittee's bipartisan investigation into the competitiveness of digital markets.
So we're talking, opening arguments of impeachment are going on in the Senate. It seems like there's just a lot of polarization in the world. But I was watching that hearing and I was struck that there seems to be at least a bipartisan consensus on the problem, if not the solution.
Absolutely. When we launched the investigation, it was done in a bipartisan way with the full support of the ranking member, the Republican leader on the Judiciary Committee, as well as the ranking member of the subcommittee, Mr. Sensenbrenner. So, and the investigation has been thoroughly bipartisan and in a very real way. Our staffs are working closely together. And I think you're right. I don't know that we'll have agreement on every single proposal or recommendation that the final report makes. But I think there's broad recognition from Republicans and Democrats that this market is not functioning properly, that there is a significant absence of competition and strong evidence of anti-competitive behavior by the dominant platforms. And I think there's a real understanding and an expectation that we're going to do something about it as a Congress. The American people are expecting us to. So it's been very bipartisan, and I hope it will stay that way.
Those are all of the bipartisan stories that we have for you this week.
Thanks for watching, and make sure to check back next Friday for episode 4 of the Bipartisan Beat.